Welcome back. This is Cetriya, Cetriya, and originally I had a marker sketch that I was going to show you just to see yet again another version of the shuttle art marker, but unfortunately that file was corrupted. Therefore, what I'm going to be showing is, I guess, a preview of this tutorial that I plan to work on. In the meantime, I'll be chatting about the real topic. The real topic for today is basically talking about what's happening with Patreon, why I am now on Patreon, things like Kickstarter, YouTube, and other things when it comes to us small creators and even some large creators, but also small businesses and the social media platforms that we use, and how I am kind of glad that I'm starting out this year rather than a couple of years prior and end up gaining a following only to have it ripped out from underneath me and wondering what to do with the rest of my years. So, what has been going on with Patreon? I'm sure you've seen the other videos, you've seen news articles, you've seen social media posts, Twitters, Facebook, all of that stuff. And as of this recording, just about a few hours prior, they had finally sent out an email saying that they're sorry that they made a mistake, that they will not be rolling out the new fees, but still, even though we got together and a lot of us had complained about it, I think more than anything they saw a sudden drop of the people who are pledging, and if there's a sudden drop of people pledging, that means Patreon itself lost money. So they themselves saw that, oh, okay, we tried to make this fee change in order to, perhaps gain some more money or lose less money from them absorbing the fees, only to find that they're just losing money, period, because people are no longer using their services. So I've kind of built the profile of my Patreon probably 2 years back, but the main reason why I am not on Patreon is, of course, I don't have a large following. But what if I had a large following, or maybe just a mid-sized following? Let's say I had about 50 backers that would regularly back my or pledge to my Patreon on a monthly basis. That I can see can seriously hurt someone. I'm sure many of you either have pledged people or are using Patreon yourselves. And the thing is, unless you are like the top tier of Patreon, such as I forgot the Russian artist that has like over millions of watchers on Instagram, and then a couple of other ones like Sakimi-chan and whatnot. It's not so much that Patreon special, or rather give you favor. It's more of when you are of that top tier, that means you're on the top priority list of people of who they follow. So let's say I follow 10 artists, then all of a sudden I can no longer afford all 10 artists. What ended up happening? I pretty much cut out all the bottom 7 of the artists and only contribute to the top 3 because those are my favorite artists. And more often than not, the most popular artist is probably the top 3 artists that you guys follow in the list of artists that you follow, and that you'd probably still contribute to them. So who end up getting hurt? All the mid-tier people and the lower end people that you just want to throw a couple of bucks as a thank you, or you like them enough and they're up and coming artists. They're the people who get hurt. So even though Patreon have retroactively said that they're not going to roll out with the fees, it's just kind of an inkling of what to come. And Patreon is not the only people who have done this. You of course have the issue with YouTube's recent demonetization. For the most part, I haven't gotten any demonetized, but I honestly think that most of the art channels have not gotten demonetized unless it's really large channels. Like I know Bailey J had some issues. I don't know if Draw with Jazza has issues, but I think in general, because we rarely have any sort of controversy that's going on with our work. I mean, we're just drawing and then chatting about the day in the life of an illustrator or a comic artist or to an extent a filmmaker, stuff like that. I can see that we most of us have not had the issue of demonetization, but the point is to see that yet again another platform, because you don't have control over it, I don't have control over it, things can change at the drop of a dime. And in this case, Patreon had stopped, but it's probably telling you that they have some reasons behind the scenes for them to have even thought about making this change, and that in the future things always change, and this could be one of the reasons that make it go. next things to consider was like, you have Facebook. I opened up a Facebook page probably a year or two, maybe a year or two before they started really restricting organic reach. So I have it there for the few people who, for some reason, refuse to follow people off of Facebook. So I have it there, but there's no point really of following me there, because even if you did click to subscribe or follow or get notification, you almost will not get any of my notification. Add to the fact that the more people you follow, you have so many people and so many of these Facebook posts coming down on front of your account on your homepage. So even Facebook again has restricted, they pretty much have become a pay to play kind of system, but still Facebook is far more superior than Patreon, because guess what? We, the creators, are the one that built up Patreon, constantly telling people follow me on Patreon or support my Patreon. And then the next step up was Kickstarter. We're the one that built Kickstarter, back my project, go to Kickstarter. And yet both Kickstarter and even to a less extent Patreon has a market penetration. I can still to this day just walk around and tell people, oh, I have a Kickstarter or I have a Patreon, and a lot of them, if they know it, don't have an account, and even more of them have never heard of the thing before. So both of those two companies definitely could work more on their market penetration. But again, Patreon was pretty much built on word of mouth. I've never seen a Patreon advertisement before. It's always someone saying, I am opening a Patreon, or I have a Patreon, so please support us on Patreon. Then there's this new service coming out like coffee and whatnot, but it doesn't really matter. Kickstarter's also coming out with a drip feature, which is basically kind of like a Patreon replacement. And I just see that one or two services will be the dominant, service that we use, that we built ourselves by all of the word of mouth promotion. And then once we get it built up to a certain extent, they're just going to go back and kind of give it a lock and key and start charging us extra fees, or start limiting resources and services and whatnot. And again, I'm not saying for you guys to not use it. I'm still pledging to a certain amount of people, but I already can see the signs that eventually we're going to have issues. Um, Going back to again that Patreon, for some reason there's a couple of services that people have asked of them. They either say they're not doing it or they can't do it yet, but a lot of times, for example, the organic search feature it doesn't exist. It's pretty horrendous, and they basically are saying they're not going to do that. But who knows, in a couple of years later, if it means that they'll make more money, they'll probably eventually do organic search. What else that's been going on with things like that? You have the store envy. So these little shops that people try to make without having to pay a monthly fee, like Big Cartel or Squarespace, the website, and then we have, what's that other one, Shopify. If you're only making like 1 or 2 sales a month, if that, it really does not make sense for you to pay a monthly fee on top of all the stuff, the very small margin and fees that they take out for the transaction. And that was the whole point of store envy, that yet again we as the users built up with word of mouth. And then at the end of it, first they made the change of, now we have a marketplace. Then they make the change of a 10% commission of a marketplace. Then all of a sudden, even though you have the marketplace feature turned off, they still charge you a transactional percentage. That really doesn't make sense, because again, you guys who've used it, me who've used it, are the one that built Store Envy to the point that it is right now. And yet I don't know why these companies I know why they're making these decisions, but I don't understand why they think that we as a consumers won't make a change. To this day, you have the thing that happened with Etsy now. People who used to done very well on Etsy all of a sudden aren't doing too well, because one, they either have been flooded by all of these resellers on Etsy, and or something with the way the keywords are set up. Either way, I never used Etsy. I've never bought on anything on Etsy, so I really don't have an account there. I've just taken one look at the website, and I just feel like it's not my marketplace to either use or to shop. But so far, people still are keeping to Etsy, because in comparison to pricing, Etsy is much cheaper than Store Envy. And then the latest story of these platforms that for some reason could care less about us, the small people, is PayPal. The most recent video was from Mini Small, art YouTuber, but it's not just her. I've heard this from off and on that all of a sudden PayPal will hold the money, or let's say someone on eBay sells something through PayPal, and then the person will say, "Oh, I never received it or was damaged," and then they get their money back, and it could be hundreds of dollars, and you, the seller, A, never got the product back, and B, end up still losing your money. So you lose both the product and the money. But then I've also noticed probably a couple of years back that more and more websites were switching to Stripe instead of PayPal. Of course, they never tell you why they did so. Some of them may have, but I was too young in my art career to really care about it. I just know that as a young user myself, I'm like, why don't you use PayPal? Now I'm starting to really see that for right now, while I'm still small, it may be okay for me to use PayPal, but I know that as I go move forward into the future, I will not be using PayPal, um, because quite frankly, their fees are really, really high. And of course, the last bit of thing that came up a few months ago, and then a few months prior, and then like a year prior, and that is these webcomic hosting sites. I know full well that if I host my stuff on anyone else's server, that even though it may be illegal, or even if it is illegal, is legal, they may feel like they own rights or have the right to use my work, and even if they don't own the right to use my work, they may still take it up knowing full well that all of us small creators do not have the power backing to actually fight for the rights of our work. And yet, where do you find the balance of trying to gain exposure and using these platforms to spread the word of your work, only to end up having someone abusing their power and their authority or their reach? You know, in the grand scheme of things, it's not like it's horrible Hollywood, scandals that's been popping up in the news lately a lot. It's not like I have to, turn tricks in order to get a play just a little role in a TV show or movie or anything. But still, I just do not understand the mindset of why these companies, where I totally understand that you need to make money, but why still do they cater to the much larger, accounts instead of multiple small accounts, to not even about supporting the art or the creative? Because again, if you have multiple people benefiting from the system, I see that far more stable than having a couple of few large accounts that all of a sudden one or two of them go down, or they're too big to go down, and then the whole line just go crashing down, and then all of us suffer, versus having the small ones just dip in and out, in and out, in and out, and then you're far more stable. That's the main reason why, again, circling back to the Patreon thing, where it's far more stable for someone to have multiple $1 backers or pledges, because if a few people not pledged that month, or a couple of credit card transactions, which was another thing, PayPal was having issues with transactions, which is why I'm thinking their problems that they were having, they're trying to build themselves a little cushion for whenever stuff like that happens. But basically, if a couple of credit cards don't go through, you, the creative who owns that page, well, own air quotes, don't feel like all of a sudden, you don't feel the hurt of losing a few bucks here and there, whereas a couple of people will pledge like $100 or whatnot, and just one of them could mean the difference between you paying your rent that month or not. Or something else that's happened that's even worse is, oh, they pledge in for the $100, but they just grab all the stuff for the $100, and then they peace out before the end of the month. So I'm just seeing that as I grow, and I hope I grow. I hope you guys share my work. I hope you guys enjoy my work. Feel free to comment, give me your feedback, your thoughts, maybe requests that you like on my videos, my channel, or my artwork. But as I grow, I definitely am going to become even more of a control freak than I already am, in terms of, I do have a website. I actually do have a website, guys. I actually pay for hosting. That I'm going to focus more on building my email list, because I don't have to worry about my email list changing its algorithms, even though email laws are changing, but still, like, I don't have to worry about, like how Instagram changed out what shows up first, or Twitter started to change out what shows up first. I don't have to worry about that. And controlling also my copyrights, my IP, my trademarks and stuff. simply because, quite frankly, I don't trust them. And even if they start out with the best intention, when money start getting mixed in and you got bills to pay, I get where they would come to, try to mitigate risk as much as possible before thinking that, you know what, the actions that I'm about to take is about to hurt a lot of people, but whatever. So excuse me for the rant, but I also hope that you guys, again, watch yourselves as you yourselves decide to grow in any business. And even if you're not owning a business, just being careful in general of a lot of things. Uh, Too many times that we, the multiple people, the masses, build something up only for it to turn against us. And I hope that I just hope that we continue to have multiple services to choose from, and that things don't end up becoming like the internet providers that we have in the United States, where pretty much I only get one choice no matter where I live and no matter what kind of service I get. Anyhow, enough of this rant, you guys. We're gonna keep it positive. Tomorrow, hopefully, I will have uploaded the next week update of 100 Days of Making Comics. My goal is to finish this by the start of next year, like literally on the 2nd of January, to have all 100 days completed. I plan to have Cross Star Chapter 2 updated by the end of the month, hopefully, if there aren't too much things happening also. And as I mentioned before, if you aren't on it already, feel free to sign up for my mailing list. I pretty soon will start sending out some exclusive there. And again, leave your comments, your thoughts, share the video, like the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I work on art tutorials and my own projects. And I will see you all in the next video.